Yeah, well, one of the things that struck me, I live in a pretty leftist neighborhood too in Toronto. In fact, I think I'm probably more unpopular in my own neighborhood than I am anywhere else in the world, which is rather annoying uh, consequence of everything that's transpired around me in the last 6 years. But one of the things I was quite struck by in Toronto in particular was the two things. One was the willingness of the left to sacrifice the poor to their purity concerns. That was really quite interesting. And also to align themselves with the pharmaceutical companies, because that was kind of a miraculous reversal that was virtually incomprehensible. I mean, for decades, the only enemy the left had that was as significant, let's say, as big energy companies was big pharma. And for the left to align themselves with the pharmaceutical companies struck me as what would you say, a philosophical reversal of miraculous proportions. I still haven't wrapped my head around that entirely. And I was also shocked, and I would really say shocked, by the absolute pleasure that people seem to take in the side effect of the COVID lockdowns, which was the opportunity to spy and inform on your neighbors. And my sense was that in Toronto, first of all, 70% of people would have worn those goddamn masks happily for the rest of their lives. And half of that group would have done it happily merely because it gave them an opportunity to spy on and inform on their neighbors. And I knew that in places like East Germany under the Soviets, that 1/3 of citizens were government informers, which is a pretty damn dismal statistic. But I knew that that proclivity was embedded deep in the heart of the human soul, let's say. If a soul can have a heart, you get my point. But it was still a shock to me to see how rapidly that desire made itself manifest when the social and political conditions made it possible and morally necessary.
Notice in the end he used morally necessary. Morally necessary. When it comes from the left, we call them woke or SJWs or screeching banshees. But the right is guilty of this too. Throughout history, they called them self-righteous crusaders or just crusaders, the religious crusaders, when people think they have the moral standing or the moral self-righteousness to do so. People on both sides of the coin will feel it is their literal obligation and duty to take your freedoms away because you're harming people, right? You are doing the wrong moral thing. You're doing a thing that's hurting the culture and society, right? And so I now have the moral obligation to participate in helping taking your freedoms away. People have done this throughout the history of man. I'm not that surprised about it. I can wrap my head around it quite easily. I think I've come to the conclusion a long time ago is people can slap labels on themselves like conservative or liberal, will easily change their so-called principles if it suits them. That's why the liberal parties flip-flopped from free speech to anti-free speech, right? People flip-flop when it just suits their what's really innate in them in the first place. People want to have power. A lot of times power inherently corrupts, right? It's that experiment. I forgot that experiment like that was done at university where they put a bunch of college boys into a prison, a fake prison, and they gave some college boys the post of security guard or law enforcement and some college boys as prisoners. And I think within a day, they were like fucking like beating these these college kids, and they literally this fake experiment, that power within hours went to their heads. People want power no matter how much they say they don't want power, and power inherently corrupts, especially when you're told that you're the good guy, you're on the right side of history, you have the moral high ground to go and take someone's liberties away. And again, both sides, the left and the right, if you give them enough power, they will do so because again, they're doing the right thing, they're doing the thing that's best for the culture, right? So I'm not that surprised. People flip-flop all the time because no one really has real morals and values. They just have an ideology and a tribe that they belong to. And so if their tribe that they're a part of, their cult, their political, cultural, idealistic cult says that this is not what we believe in, then that's what they now believe in. And I totally agree with Dr. Jody Peterson. If people would gladly forever been in mask and lockdowns if it meant they can continue to have their moral high ground over people. For some people, that was the one time and the only time they felt like they ever had any power. And there are still people to this day wearing masks, by the way, like hardcore. Anyway, let's continue.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say, I think I was naive. I did not think that Americans or Canadians or free people in general had that inside them. I knew that people who had been under totalitarian rule, who didn't know anything else, yes, they could be made to inform on their neighbors. But free people who didn't have anything to lose were telling on people for having too many friends in their backyard. And that was happening frequently in my neighborhood. Another interesting moment was, so I lived in this neighborhood, Park Slope in Brooklyn, and there was like a board on Facebook. And a woman wrote in and she said, I'm Asian. I was bicycling without my mask, and an older white couple yelled racial epithets at me. This is at the height of the pandemic, spring 2020.
And I bet you those same neighbors put hashtag violence against Asians in their bio. Because again, it's not about actually being a good person. It's just the tribe. It's just the ideology and virtue signaling. Sadly.
And in normal times, obviously everybody would be supportive of her and, oh, how dare this white couple say racist things to you. But the majority of the comments were like, well, you should have been wearing your mask. And that's where they got to, where they threw away their own previous ideas in order for this new mask god. And it was really wild to watch that. I didn't expect that. Look, I'm a lifelong conservative. My husband is a conservative, and we were going to live in this liberal area, and that would have been fine until the pandemic hit and we saw what was really going on. We couldn't unsee it.
Surprised. Okay, so I said before, unfortunately, a lot of people don't have actual pure principles and values. So a lot of times it really goes along with your ideology. And I'm not saying I'm better than anyone. I try not to do that. That's why I'm willing to listen to people I don't necessarily agree with. I'm willing to listen to a feminist. I'm willing to listen to someone who's a socialist, like Russell Brand is a fucking socialist. But I like a lot of the stuff he has to say because I'm not blinded by my tribe. I'm not just going to go with a brand that I'm trying to build that benefits me. Most people don't have pure principles. It flip-flops depending on the person that's involved, depending on the situation, depending on the context. A lot of Republicans and a lot of conservatives will scream, freedom! We want freedom! But we also think women should be kind of shamed back into the kitchen and be like shamed into having children and shamed for what they're wearing. They'll say that that's not taking their freedom away, but cultural pressure is a form of trying to force you to do something that you wouldn't necessarily do without that coercion of society or your community. So most people don't have pure principles. That is just the way it is. So don't be surprised when your pastor, and I've seen this multiple times, super religious folks scream up and down about pro-life, 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 but will very much vote for a pro-choice politician because they're Democrat and their pastor told them so. Stop being so shocked and surprised when people you used to look up to or people who said that they stand on this idea or these principles on these values flip-flop in 2.5 seconds. Because we live in a world where that stuff doesn't matter. What matters is your tribe. What matters is your ideology. What matters is you just going after them. Is this against us? And again, is what's going to destroy society. But what the fuck do I know? I have blue in my hair and a nose piercing and tattoos. According to the red pill, I'm not a woman you should be listening to anyway. Hi, my camera ran out of battery. But anyway, please like, comment, subscribe, and donate. And let me know what you think of this video in the comment section below. And if you agree with me or disagree with me as well, in the comment section below.